Are we ready?
You are, Madam President.
Because I've already had one person
about
say
30
to me,
seconds, probably.
we've got teachers that are not wanting to wear
Okay.
theirs, so we
Got
ours.
All right, gotcha.
Call to order, roll call. Madam Secretary shows all 5 members are here and present. Mrs. King, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Parker, would you read the mission statement this evening?
Upshur County Schools is committed to creating a united community for educational excellence.
Thank you, sir. We have been provided the agenda. Are there any agenda adjustments?
Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, you will notice on your personnel agenda that we did have an employee that requested FMLA, and they passed away last week. So I did want to make sure to call your attention to that so that we would not be acting on that at all. And that would be Mr. Brent Wilfong. We are very, very sad to know that we lost a great employee.
Any other adjustments?
That's the only one.
Could I have a motion that we accept the agenda as presented with that one adjustment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Tonight we have 2 delegations. Mr. Reed, Dr. Reed, come and talk to us.
Just wanted to update, I've talked to Dr. Miller and to Board of Education, to the County Commission and to City Council. Talked to Tammy Samples at the college and Mr. Waltz. Proposal is that we somehow find topics for the City Council, the County Commission, and the Board of Education that students might be interested in, and that they then work on these topics over a year, and at the end of the year, like maybe April, present their ideas in a mock session that they conduct, and hopefully then get AP credit. That's the County Commission and City Council have spoken favorably. Tammy suggested that it might be a semester rather than a year. One of the questions is, what kind of funds would it take to make something like this happen? And ongoing effort to see. My concept is that education is best when you hear about it, see it, and then do it.
Yes.
And so that's my idea here, is that students have an opportunity to actually perform and present what they have as they conduct the mock meeting. I'm willing to work on it what I can, but I'm not in the school system, so I can't do it all. And I know it would take someone in the school system to work with the kids and help. My thought is that they would pick, various students would pick one topic, and then choose, depending on which body they wanted to approach, and then there might be another group that would present to another body. But it's open for development, ideas, thoughts. If I can help, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Tinney?
So my name's Bridget Tenney, and a lot of people here already know me, but some of you don't know me very well.
And Dr. Reed had just said that he likes his children or community children to see it, do it, touch it, and do it, and that's exactly what we do in our program here at Buchanan Upshur High School. So just a little bit about myself. I run the BU Zoo and developed it here at Buchanan Upshur High School, where students have 13 species of animals that they take out to the elementary schools. They present to the elementary kids here in our county. They do outreach programs in the community. We've done 4-H and some fall festivals and just large community groups in general. We have serviced up to 1,200 kids at one event at one time, which is an amazing opportunity for my BU Zoo kids to undertake. So last year we had about 32 zoo children, BU Zoo kids. This year we have about 60, and the program was so enjoyed by the students and valued that we had to expand it, and now we have Zoo 2 as well. And the Zoo 2 program is kind of those second year students where we're taking the learning of the animals to the next step of what can you do with it with a career, some college visits, some management skills. They do all the paperwork that you would never imagine. There's a lot of paperwork to go on a field trip, but they do all of that paperwork, with my supervision. But they have to learn all the red tape, and they have to learn what we have to do and who we have to ask and all of that. And so, that being said, in my classroom, I like to have a living classroom, literally. I want my kids to be interested. I want them to find a spark. I want them to ask questions. So a year or so ago, my students said, Mrs. Tinney, those poison dart frogs we have in the classroom, those are so cool. They said, what if we could see those in the wild? I said, let's go. So we went to Costa Rica this summer. We got to see 2 of the species. We have 6 species of poison dart frogs in our classroom, but we got to see 2 of those species literally living in their natural environment, which is such an amazing opportunity for West Virginia kids. And our low socioeconomic status that we have here, a lot of our kids don't get to have those opportunities. And not only, Costa Rica is international, so that's a bigger excursion, but even to get on the airplane sometimes is the highlight of the kids' trip. Or I can't get them through the airport because they have to go to the Cheesecake Factory. And, like, oh, we're going to Costa Rica. And they're excited about the Cheesecake Factory. And, so it's just those cultural events and things that we see on our trips, because they're all science trips. They're all based on, they bring in some things that students can do as careers. For example, when we went to Tampa, Florida, we shadowed 9 different careers in marine biology. We dissected sharks, we swam with dolphins, we dip netted for seahorses, and we take those experiences. For example, the poison dart frogs, we went there, we found them, and we already had them in our classroom, but the seahorses sparked an interest in my kids when we were dip netting in the Keys, because they said, wow, these are really neat. And then when we went to Hawaii, we went to a seahorse farm, and we learned about how that we can help the pet trade by breeding and selling captive seahorses, so they're not taken from the wild. And this year my students, my Zoo 2 students, will be doing a 10-week course through that program in Hawaii, where we met real people, made real connections, brought those connections back to the classroom. And the plan this year is to have seahorses in the classroom by the end of the school year. So it's just really powerful to see these trips come to fruition and to see the different opportunities that the kids get to have. So in the past, we've done Tampa, Florida, we've done the Florida Keys, we've done Alaska, we've done Hawaii, we've done Costa Rica. So this year, we are going to change gears a little bit because the prices have doubled, and my kids can't afford that. I can't afford that. So, for example, the Alaska trip we took a couple years ago was $3,400 for 6 or 7 days in Alaska, and now it's $5,700. My families can't afford that. They can't even think of affording that. And so the Yellowstone trip is in that $3,500 range, so we are going to do that. It's on my bucket list anyways. I could teach about Yellowstone for a year and a half, I think. It's really fun. So we're going to hopefully go to Yellowstone. We're going to do some whitewater rafting on the Snake River. I hate whitewater rafting, but I'm going to take one for the team. I do not have a thrill for adrenaline, but the kids do. So we will whitewater raft. We're going to check out the hot water springs from the thermal reservoir underneath of Yellowstone from the hot spot. We are going to ride horses in the backwoods of Yellowstone because if there's horses, we're just going to be on them. And we are going to go to the Wolf and Grizzly Research Center, where we get to work behind the scenes. And that's another thing that these trips do for the kids. They get to do a lot of behind the scenes activities that the tourists don't get to do. And they get to do the things that you might, for example, use as a career. Or, like when we were swimming with dolphins, the public just paid to swim with the dolphins. But our kids got a 3-hour lecture, discussion, interaction with the dolphins, talking about how to train them, why we train them, how we do it, how you could train your dog the same that you could train your dolphin. I came home thinking I was going to train my dog. Didn't do it. But I listened. But how those skills can be applied to other situations and to careers in the future. So, what else are we going to do? We are going to go to a Wild West shootout. That should be fun in Jackson Hole. And so, also, like I said, they put a lot of the culture into these trips. So when we did Costa Rica, we did cooking in Costa Rican fashion. The kids had to go to the farm, pick their own produce, bring it back to the kitchen, clean it, prepare it, cook it, and serve each other from the farm that they ate out of. And so that was really neat for them because they got to see the milk cow that their milk came from, the ice cream that they were eating. Of course, I have a milk cow in my house, so to me that wasn't that spectacular, but to them it really was. And it showed how they collected her urine and feces and turned it into methane, and the entire facility was run off of one cow's methane. And so it was really neat to learn how you can be self-sustaining and how other communities live differently than us and how we can respect each other in our differences. So I'm excited to embark on another adventure, and I hope that that's okay with you guys. Any questions?
The
You
dates?
want me to give you the boring spiel?
No.
Okay. I usually have to talk about insurance and all this, but I've told you guys that lots
Yeah,
of times.
we have it. We
The
have all that.
dates will be June, the 3rd or 4th week in June. The travel agent that I'm working with, we always make sure, like for example, if the date looks better for getting into the Wolf and Grizzly Center, it'll be in that 2-week, either the 3rd or the 4th week in June.
Good.
But he'll pick those dates based on the most exciting opportunities for our kids.
Great.
Any other questions?
Thank you for giving our kids a chance to experience the world.
It's fun. I want to have fun, they want to have fun, so we're just all having fun and learning.
That's right.
I know that you're having fun, and I know the students are having fun and learning.
That's the point. If they want to do it, if they're interested in it, then they invest in their own learning, and I don't have to work so hard to make them want it.
That's true. It's very true.
Do you mind if I said that?
No, you're fine.
You guys
Thank
have a lovely
you.
evening.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Please keep us updated on the progress of getting ready to go and how many will be going, etc.
Okay. All right.
Superintendent's update?
Yes, so the first thing that you can see, you have printed out in front of you the approved goals that I'll be working on this coming school year to continue to move Upshur County Schools in a positive direction. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of those positive things here in just a few minutes. The other thing, September the 19th has been declared West Virginia School Service Personnel Day. We did receive a proclamation from the governor, and Sherry Talkington, who is the West Virginia School Service Personnel Association president, shared that with all superintendents. So we want to make sure that we not only honor them on that day, but we do honor them every day because they are such an important part of our system. Just a reminder that Mr. Brown sent out today to all of you the schedule for the upcoming weekend fall conference. Those of you that are doing it virtually, Mrs. Davidson shared with me today that you will be getting the links tomorrow, so that you will have those, so that you know that. There was a question asked last time regarding virtual students. We currently have 217 students participating in virtual. The PO that was for $900,000 is not going to be the final cost. We always make the PO for more, not knowing how many students we may enter in that second semester. The question's also been asked, what if we don't offer virtual school? We are losing the funding for 217 students in Upshur County. If we look at that at about $4,500, we're looking at approximately $1 million that we're losing in funding. Mrs. Martini, she is the one who is the point person for this. She had last year 43 students that were successful graduates. And she's looking at 24 this coming school year. So I did want to follow up with you on the virtual situation. We have our updated attendance data for August. You know, having such few days, the chronic absenteeism rate is outrageous, but the more days that we spend in school, the better it gets. So Mrs. Baisden broke it down by grade level. She also looked at our subgroups, those students that have IEPs versus no IEPs, a low socioeconomic versus not, as well as male and female. So she looked at each school, and she also looked at the reasons for attendance, absences. Right now, when she shared this report with me at the end of last week, we had almost 2,000 unexcused absences. Ooh. Now, we are still working with parents to get them to use the place online. How many did you say? 2,000 unexcused. So we are all working diligently with parents on the website, and it's on each school website, to just go in there and enter the excuses. We've walked several people through it, so I'm sure that number is less because they've been working so hard on that. We've had 12 instances where kids may be out of school due to discipline. We are working with elementary schools on being tardy because that's where we see our largest percentage of kids being tardy. The grade level that has the highest percentage of not unexcused, but for chronic absenteeism is in 3rd grade, and it is in 5th grade at the current time. The others are either below 25%, but those are at 29% chronically absent as when she did this. So I did want to share that with you because each month I'll share the updated percentages with you.
As a point of clarification, parents can still turn in a paper note if they can't do it online. Am I correct?
That is correct. Okay. That is correct. We're just encouraging to go that route.
I just, before we hear that they can only do it one way.
Yes, no, they can do it.
They can do it the other way.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, they can. And we're working with local physician offices as well. Because oftentimes the parent will say, oh, I left it at the doctor, and then they'll call and we can get those from them. Being passed down to you right now are the test scores. Last year when we shared these were some things that we did not share with you. The first page shows you the cohort of students. So let me explain this using the mathematics example. The students that were in 3rd grade in 2021, if you follow the blue down 2022, 23, and 24, that is the same group of students, and that is their scaled score as they move through those grade levels. So I did that for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in both mathematics and ELA, so that you could see the change in scores across time, over time. If you go to the next page, this is an explanation of those scaled scores by grade level and subject area, and I included English language arts. So if we go back to the example of English language arts and begin with third grade. In order for them to meet the standard, their scale score had to fall between 586 and 615. And that it'll be the second set of scores on that front page down below, okay? So we didn't meet, but if we look, we are in partially meets. So how did that same group of students score then in fourth grade? Their scaled score is 576. We still are only in partially meets. Go to 23. Their scaled score as a group is 599. So go to fifth grade, we are still partially meets.
So close.
When we go to 2024, which is this past year, they were in sixth grade and their scaled score is 618. So when we look here, we're still in partially meets. So what does this tell us at the central office or in our schools? It tells us that we may be growing the students a little bit, but we still are not getting to the point where we're meeting standards with them. And we need to take a very close look. What standards did they not meet in third grade? Did they repeat in fourth, or did we add? What happened in fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth? Because then that gives us an idea across a time span how our students are performing and what standards do we need to pay closer attention to and become a focus for students, okay? So I wanted to show you that and then how that works through each of those grade levels. The next page past the scale scores there are our performances this year in all of our schools by grade level. At the bottom, you will see that if it's in the orangish red, that's 0 to 25% proficient. That is not good. 26 to 50%, we're getting a little bit better. 51 to 75%, we are on our way. And then the green is the 76 to 100%, which is where we would like to see more of our schools getting to. But if you look, we do have 2 third grade classes, French Creek and Buchanan Academy, and then a fourth grade class at Tenerton that are in that 51 to 75% proficient. The state proficiency rate in mathematics this past year was 35.5. The county's is 26.4. We're making progress. Slowly, but we're making progress. If you then turn to the next page, you will see the same thing for English language arts. The state proficiency for this past year was 45.1%. The county proficiency is 37.5%. If we look at last year's math and English language arts, overall, when we add grade 11, we did improve by approximately 2%. That is significant considering operations was our main focus last year. People were learning their roles because we had several that were in new roles. And that I think that the important message out of this too is the focus that is now in place for this school year, the sky's the limit for our kids and for their performance. So the next meeting, we will share the balanced scorecard with you like we did last year. If you listen to the state board meeting tomorrow, you'll get an overview. And then we will be able to share those with you and what Upshur County looks like at the October board meeting. Do you all have any questions about what you're seeing?
It's a great deal to take in, but it gives us it is showing growth,
Yes, ma'am.
which is what we want.
Yes. And that is all I have for my update this evening.
I could take an hour to devour all of that.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think. Okay, Board member committee meeting updates. I know I have not had a meeting yet. Mrs. Dean?
Yeah, I've had a library meeting, just some highlights. A lot of activities planned for the month of October. There's a chess club going on at the public library, and anybody can come and play chess. At the meeting, there was chess tables. Can't hear me, can you? There was chess tables everywhere, and people were there playing chess. They have computer programs that they are teaching for anybody who would like to learn. On the 26th of August through the 31st, they removed all the old carpet and put new in, so they're sprucing it up. And the summer reading program, which was what I was excited about, was the 0 to 5, during the summer, 0 to 5 years old, there were 64 attendees. And 5 to 12 years old, there was 138 that attended all through June, all the 4-week program. And the 13 to 17-year-olds, there was 20. So
that's great.
that I thought that was impressive. That was good. They would like to see more of the elementary, or high school and middle school to come to the library. So some of those field trips and things, I mean, it's a nice library, and it's very functional and very friendly. There's a lot of good things going on there. So if any of the elementary schools have some time that they need to fill, the library is the place to be. Thank you.
Fred Everly met this afternoon, their board, and just two things I want to bring up. The enrollment this year at Fred Everly is 409 students from 3 schools. It is up, if I remember right, Mrs. Miller, is it up 30-some kids?
About 37,
From
I
last
think they
year.
said. Yeah.
Which is really great.
Good.
I think almost all the programs are filled now.
Yes.
So they were real excited that they have more kids coming. They also have an SBA grant that they got to extend their parking lot. They don't have enough parking there. So they got a grant to extend it and build it around to the one side of Fred Everly there. And they're up and running.
Mm-hmm.
Parks and Recreation Committee had their meeting on August the 20th. Excuse me. As you know, Ms. King will be attending these meetings as the board representative in the future, but they give an update on the trails. Their next workday on the trails is October the 19th. The director's report, they're looking at general upgrades at the tennis courts and redoing the fencing, doing pickleball markings also at the same time. The baseball field bleachers being replaced, supposed to be re-inspected in October of this year. A couple of conferences coming up, the recreation conference in September, the trails conference in October. Land and water conservation grants, that is being considered, and there's projects under review for that. And their next meeting is September the 24th at the Extension Office at 5:30.
Anything else anyone has to add? WVDE update on Upshur County intervention. Mr. Kelly, please.
Don't worry, those are, you all hear me? Is this on?
I don't think it's on.
I don't think it's on.
Those aren't handouts that I was carrying. Those are for me. Before I get into this, first of all, thanks for having me, but I think it's kind of interesting as I go through this, and I talked to Superintendent Miller quite a bit, but we didn't talk about what she was going to talk about and what I was going to talk good. That's very good. I'm gonna go back a little bit and talk about the background over the last year. And then I'm gonna switch over to some of the things I'm seeing on the academic front that I think are important. Obviously, everybody's aware that the state intervened, and we recently gave a progress report to the state board. I'm going to cover a couple of those notable areas of progress that occurred over the last year, and mostly over the last 6 months. But there was an examination of overtime, and I think that's been cleaned up pretty well, and there's been a significant savings on that front as a result. This last year in September, they began setting learning targets and goals with the schools. They talked about improving leadership at the school level, developing common understanding of roles and responsibilities, and generally speaking, people do not understand how important having a common terminology within your system of education is to be to the success of the overall program. They reviewed credit recovery to strengthen that, which is very important that you have a rigorous credit recovery program. You don't want kids failing their regularly scheduled classes so they can walk into a credit recovery program and just speed through it. That's not the purpose. So they examined that and tried to strengthen it. They started holding data meetings with their schools administration. They spent time back in October looking at behaviors of students and identifying ways in which we can help our students meet those challenges. They engaged external resources to help in that process. They conducted a curriculum and resource audit in all schools, and I'm going to talk about that a little more in depth here in a minute. Superintendent Miller created and convened a superintendent's advisory meeting for committee. I think that started maybe back in November. Obviously, the repayment relative to the initial findings, that was taken care of, I think, in December. You turn over into January, got pretty heavy in the review of policy, and I think we've been through most, if not all of that.
All of
correct?
it.
All of it,
Yep.
yes. That's a huge undertaking. That is a huge undertaking, and the fact that they were able to get through that in year one was significant. There's a special education audit. I believe that maybe back in December, and there have been subsequent things happen as a result of that. I think they've secured a special education specialist to help address those items that were outlined in the findings of the audit. There's a myriad of things going on that front. They reviewed all the IEPs, put training in place to address some of those concerns, specifically policy 2419, functional behavior assessments, intervention plans. I could go on manifestations. Of course, Mr. Watering talked about a comprehensive restructuring of the strategic plan, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then Upshur County Schools report, all personnel at the board office received an evaluation for the past school year, and that had not occurred for some time. So those were some of the highlights I mentioned to the state board. And you'll notice that a lot of those items, and even in the previous update, a lot of those things were internal processes and operations. And I think you heard Superintendent Miller mention when she was talking about the test scores, the fact that there are some areas to highlight there, considering basically this entire first year was operations and processes and cleanup. That's a good result, that there were actually academic highlights within the test scores with all of that going on. I pulled an email that Mr. Watring sent. This is back in April. And he's talking about working on a comprehensive restructuring of the strategic planning process. And again, all that other stuff was going on that whole year that this county was working on. He talks about the data talks. I think they conducted those quarterly. I think the last round was in May. He talked about the fact that they had organized and led a team at each school in completing a comprehensive school audit. Written reports. Guess what he did? He sent every last one of them to me. And this is just one of them. I mean, yeah, they did this at every school. I read every one of them. I was pretty impressed. I mean, this is, and I'm not going to read these to you. I mean, there's already diagnostic results in here. They have even broke it down into charts for us. Did they get this?
Yes.
Okay. Talking about professional learning communities. Teachers stated that they are leaders. Opportunities for students to engage in leadership opportunities. Or I'm sorry, I repeated myself there. Talk about classrooms being clean and inviting. Obviously, that contributes to the academic culture. I could go on. But like I said, that was one school. And they sent me the strategic plan. I think this is all right. Talked about the process that they went to. 12 steps. Stakeholder planning team. Again, I'm not going to read all these. Timelines for benchmarks, data analysis, series of focus groups, develop emerging themes, set goals, action steps, on and on. Again, very impressed. I'm not going to read all that. I think the point I'm trying to make here is there's been a shift from operations and processes to academia, and that's what we got to have. There is nothing more important than teaching and learning. So that work is not easy, and to do it on top of the day-to-day and cleaning up the operations and the processes, I thought was significantly important and impressive. For those of you that are going to be there Saturday, and again, I did not talk to Superintendent Miller, but you're going to hear me talking about the exact same stuff, just on a statewide level with those test scores. We're growing kids. We're just not growing them enough. We're just not getting above the hump on our growth. And I wanted to talk a little bit about test scores. I trace back to 2010. Upshur County was 15th in the state in English language arts and 18th in math. By 2015, Upshur County Schools was 46th in English language arts and 54th in math, and basically stayed there since. In this past year, rose from 49th to 45th in reading and from 52nd to 49 in math. Haven't registered at 45 or higher since 2014 in reading. last registered at 49 in math in 2018, and before that in 2016. I wasn't here. I don't know what happened. But when you just look at the trajectory of the rankings, it doesn't appear that academics have been at the forefront for a while, at least not with results. And when I read that stuff, what it tells me is that it is. And I talked to Superintendent Miller, I think, well, we talk a lot, so I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but I was going back through some of these numbers. I know you said you could spend an hour. I spend hours on this stuff, and I do it for a lot of schools and a lot of counties. You know, West Virginia improved by, I think, a little over 1% in reading and maybe close to 1% in math. And I believe Upshur improved at 2.39 and 1.41, so they outpaced. Upshur County outpaced the state average. But there's a ways to go. So I think there's a little bit to celebrate here with the scores. And I want to think, with everything that I'm seeing in these documents and probably what's being implemented now over the course of this year, that hopefully those growth numbers will be even more significant come July of 25. I don't really get excited, so I'm not going to say I'm excited, but I like what I see. You know, building capacity on that front, where teachers are teaching at a high level and engaging all kids. That doesn't happen overnight across the board. I mean, I know we've always had good teachers and systems all over this state, but to get that type of fidelity and the capacity to do that across the board in multiple schools at a high level doesn't happen overnight. But what I can tell you is that this group has a plan. I think they're working very hard at implementing it, and I think there's a good chance we'll see the fruits of their labor moving forward. I'll be very interested to see the beginning benchmark numbers and the middle benchmark numbers, which will come, I think, February, if I'm not mistaken, compared to last year's numbers once we get there. So I'll leave it at that for now. Again, I think that the biggest takeaway is we're moving away from cleaning up the operations. Not that that's altogether done, but that a significant majority of it is completed, and we're now focusing on what's most important, which is teaching and learning and educating our children. So I'll take questions from the board should they have any. And if I don't know the answer immediately, I'll take it with me and I'll be sure to get you a response in a timely manner.
Would you give me those percentages again for 2010? Or those rankings? I'm sorry, they're not.
15 and 18. That was 15 in reading and 18 in math.
And then what was our lowest point?
Well, kind of tanked out in 2015 at 46 and 54, and it's basically stayed in that arena pretty much since. Am I getting off that easy? I hope so. I'll say this to.
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
The comprehensive school audits, there's one for each school
Yes.
that you said, and Mr. Wotring did those?
Well, I think they had
The team?
Team.
Okay.
a team.
And the strategic plan, we have a copy of that?
Of the strategic plan, no, that's something that's coming
No.
to you.
Okay, and then the school audits for each school?
You, the two of you don't have copies of those, we'll get those to
You weren't on the
you.
board then.
Okay,
And we're going to start those again, because we're going to do them again this year.
Okey
It's
doke.
like the old LEP.
Yeah, yeah. I'd just like to read it.
Yes, we'll get those to you.
Thank you.
at least our trajectory is going in the right direction.
Yeah, I don't know if 1 year's data is
Yeah,
called for a trajectory
almost
just
3
yet,
years at
but,
least.
and I don't say that lightly. Going up's better than going down.
Right.
Amen.
You know, so that's, to your point, yes.
At least the propeller is turning on the plane.
Yes, you are correct. And I had to be a little, it's hard to draw a lot of conclusions
It
with
is.
1 year's data, obviously.
Very
I
much.
mean, we all know that.
Yes.
But it was positive, and, what I think's in place, of course, it's a little tougher to go up. Once you go up once, it's a little tougher to go up second. The stairs get a little steeper as you go up the chain, but I'm encouraged. So we'll see how it plays out.
I have one other question,
Sure.
because last year, when the scores came out for meet standards or all of the scores for all of the counties, I looked at those in depth, and I was shocked at what counties really were higher than what you expect, like Pendleton, or some of those, Pocahontas, one of those was higher than what I expected, because they're very much like we are. Is there anything to be gained by looking at what the key is in those counties?
Well, I can tell you right now that principals and superintendents steal a lot from each other. When we see these pockets of schools or counties that are starting to maybe what we believe is outkick their coverage a little bit.
Right.
Now, there may be very good reason for that. It may be an anomaly. Some of those smaller counties could have one group of kids that come along, 20 or 30 kids that just, tilt the scales for them.
Absolutely.
So, I always say when you're looking at the data, you see what's on the face, but then you got to get down into the guts of it to figure out what's
Right.
really driving those things. And I've had these very conversations with Superintendent Miller over the past few years, just, walking through that and why do we think this is happening. And sometimes it's when somebody's doing really, really well, or maybe they're having a bad year. You start having those conversations and you start to learn some things. Sometimes one county's implementing a certain curriculum or program with a great deal of fidelity, and the county next door is doing the same thing. They're just not doing it very well.
Very true.
There's 100,000 variables out there that could impact a number of things. So
And I will just piggyback off of that. So conversations that are held are really through our organization, the West Virginia Association of School Administrators, because very good programs we spotlight them. So they have the opportunity to share, which gives us the opportunity to steal. And then in our case, we have our directors that come back and they have in-depth conversations with the folks who are presenting to then build off of those ideas. There's several things that we're implementing this year that we stole from Putnam County. And if you look overall, Putnam County is the county to aspire to be. But there's other examples throughout the state as well. So going to those meetings, I can't put value on them. They are just that important. And when we network and we can share, that helps all of us across the state.
I want to, just a prime example here, these school visits, audits, whatever, I'm not sure what terminology.
Audits, we call them audits.
When I talked to Mr. Watering about those, he had spoken to another superintendent in another county because they were doing something that they actually took from another county. So it went through 3 counties, and he said, we basically took what they did, tweaked it a little bit to fit our system and the way we wanted to do it. And now you have all this information. Now, the key is to take the information and use it and apply it to become better. And so, which is, I'm certain, what is taking place right now. So, it's, like I said, we steal. Why not?
Back in the olden days, when I was in the system, we used to call that case, copy and steal everything.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
It's the only way you're gonna improve if you
Yeah.
pull from here and
exactly
here.
right.
And I would like to also piggyback on what Jan was talking about, Pendleton County, and the counties that are doing great, like Marion, well, not Marion, well, Marion, Mon, the big counties, we'll just say that.
Harrison.
But I looked at all of our surrounding counties on these new test scores. They're all very similar as far as the percentage of students that passed, that met proficiency. If you look at, I'm talking Lewis, Barber, Randolph, the one
Webster.
Barber, the ones that are all us, they're all similar. There's very little difference in the test scores. And I know we're on the,
But we wanna be better.
of course we do.
wanna be
We always
wanna be
wanted to
better.
beat,
Let's
we always
just
wanted to
strive
beat
to
our
be
rivals.
better. But I want,
It's like any year we can beat Elkins and Lewis County in football. It's a good year.
Well, that's not a bad mindset. I speak to principals quite a bit. I often ask them that question. They might have a really good basketball team or football team, and I'll ask them what's more important, test scores or winning football games. And
Depends on who you're talking to.
You'll be surprised how often the room gets quiet. And
Are you
I'll
talking
say
to
that's
football
the wrong
parents or are you
answer.
talking to? Yeah.
Of course, I did have a guy, I think last month, he said, "How about we do both?" I said, "Well, that's fine. Okay, we'll do both, that's fine. But let's make sure we get the one done for sure." So, but I'll talk more about this. I think I'm Saturday morning with you guys. I'm going to do a pretty extensive piece on test scores. So hopefully that'll contribute a little bit to the conversation as well.
Thank you for coming this distance to see us.
Don't mind at all. I hope to be back. I'm upright.
We welcome you at any point in time, don't we?
All right. All right. Best of luck and thanks for the time.
thank you.
Item 7 on the agenda, minutes, policies, contracts, and agreements. We'll start with minutes. You should,
Couple of clarifications on, and look at the minutes on under the board committee assignments. Should we would be listing, like, Upshur County Parks and Recreation Advisory Board? Should the minutes reflect Ms. King is now the representative? And on the 4-H Foundation and Extension Service, should the minutes reflect that Ms. Craig is the representative? That,
Is that not at the lesson?
Yeah, it was
that's
the
a
last
point
meeting.
there.
It's not in
can we
there.
make those correct?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the minutes just reflect, you know, the assignments as presented, but it doesn't say who was presented necessarily.
Usually that's in there.
I believe that's an easy correction to make, Mr. Parker.
Okay. And
Is there-
then, the only other thing is, I'd sent a email as it relates to the approved check register or invoices. Superintendent may have not had a chance to review that yet, but 3 instances that I noted where purchase orders were approved or one lacked a signature even after the goods or services were received. And then on ACC businesses, I'm not sure what long-distance services we're having at a cost of $279, but the bill's $151.56 because there's a minimum charge in there, so I don't know what that's for.
We still have to investigate those.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other concerns in relation to the minutes? Could I have a motion to approve the minutes with the correction of adding the 2 names with the appropriate community group that they represent?
So move.
Thank you, sir. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. King. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Policies, contracts, and agreements.
Yes, we did do a purchase order for legal services with Bowles Rice. As you know, an executive session that we held, that was just one example of costs that we were going to incur. We are currently still battling that, plus a couple of others, and one that is significant is the lawsuit that's been filed regarding vaccines. So we had to put a rather large purchase order on, which has been approved by finance at the department, because they understand that the legal service bill is not going to decrease. It's just going to increase. So I did want to make you all aware that that is why that purchase order is so large. I really and truly don't know what we would do without the expertise of Howard Super.
Oh, no.
I mean, his.
Money well spent.
Yes. So,
On that agreement, I do have a clarification or question, if you want to call it that.
yes,
On page 2 of that agreement, second paragraph, I've seen it in other counties, hope it never happens here. In our current situation, you know, where he talks about representing the corporate board, even if it's in contradiction to the administration, how does that reflect in our current situation? Who employs Bowles Rice, Howard Super, if the Upshur County Board and the administration do not agree?
that is a good question.
I
I don't, in the current situation, I don't know. That would be something that we could reference to.
don't foresee that happening,
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
yeah.
It could. It could, but I don't know. I would have to ask for clarification.
I just,
From the state? Yes.
Yeah. I'll find out.
okay.
If we continue, we have MOUs that we included for audiology services and an audiologist from, with Marion County Board of Education, and then the West Virginia Military Authority to continue the National Guard's Future Leaders Program, which has been very successful here at Buchanan Upshur High School.
On that MOU,
Yes,
item 10, it's a 5-year agreement. We have a 30-day out clause. So I'm assuming that would take care of committing beyond a year an annual agreement.
yes.
Do we normally have a non-appropriation clause? I didn't see a non-appropriation clause in there. I didn't know if we normally had that or not.
Not on all, no.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes.
Anything else?
Not on those, no, not for me.
Moving on to the consent agenda.
Yes, I believe you were provided a purchase order status report for July 24th through August 26th of 2024. That was prepared by finance. I will say that the purchase order process is one of those operational pieces that we are still working through. We do have a new person that is going to be taking over in accounts payable. She is learning the process, and as I have questions regarding purchase orders, which they'll tell you that I ask questions about every purchase order basically that comes across my desk for approval, because I'm not a quick approver. I look at the codes, both object and subject codes, as well as the fund source that they're coming from, to make sure that they're matching. If I have questions, I go back to the source. We have directors that do approve expenditures through the requisition process, and oftentimes there's not enough of an explanation. So I go back and I ask before my signature goes on purchase orders. There are some cases where you may not see my signature on a purchase order, and that's either because we're waiting for additional information, but in some cases it's an emergency situation and we have to complete the work, and then I go back and I do sign them. But I'm very probably over the top with those, but I do understand that that was one of the areas that was very lax in previous administration. And I want to make sure that that's something, as we're working through an audit again with the auditor's office this year, that they can see our attention to detail more so, and that we are trying to correct those things that they specifically pointed out to us in the audit last year.
Just, and I read all those pages and enjoyed every one. But a clarification, page 24, it's just a small amount, but Ralston Press, where we canceled everything but one on the requisitions, work orders, student emergency cards, adult emergency cards, you know, not that I'm concerned, I just wondered what happened.
So we went to online offering, which saved us a bundle of money.
That answers that question. Thank you.
As a reminder, all of those items have already been approved through the state, so there is no action on them.
Correct.
Request to use facilities.
So we have two requests there. You will notice dates that have already passed. We worked with those organizations as we're working through the new facilities request form that we are using. Buchanan Youth Football uses VUHS facilities, particularly for games and sometimes practices. So they do have to work around scheduled things and activities here. So some of those things did have to take place prior to this meeting. The Girl Scout troop at French Creek Elementary, they do meet during the school year. They're getting ready to begin, and they do use various dates for various activities. I'm going to keep on rolling because the next couple of pages.
If I could have a couple of clarifications, sorry, and it deals with insurance. On the Buchanan Youth Football,
Yes,
their insurance is under the name of Mountaineer Youth Football out of Philippines.
correct.
Okay, so they're the same organization.
They are the same organization.
All right, and the Girl Scouts did not list us as an additional insured. We are not checked as an additional insured.
That is correct. They are working on correcting that for us now.
Thank you.
So the next couple of pages are approved chaperone list. It's a rather extensive process that we've now put into place. And again, when we talk about stealing ideas, Mr. Hasselfluch, who is the superintendent in Jackson County, helped us do this. We are doing our background checks through the local sheriff's office. One of our pro officers is doing those for us, so there's no cost to our families. When we do we actually do the sex offender registry ourselves. We check that ourselves. And principals are part of the process because they make sure that the required training of Megan's Law is fulfilled, and then they'll sign off on that. So we do provide opportunity for individualized looking at Megan's Law, but we also allow for groups to view that and then discuss the answers to the questions that do come at the backside of that training.
Okay, the comments brought up a clarification. On the background checks, did you say the sheriff's office is doing those?
Yes, they are free of charge.
Are they running those through NCIC?
I'm not sure what Danny's doing, but we are getting a very comprehensive background check.
Unless the regulations have changed, and it's been a long time. My spouse did that for Lewis County, and they were using NCIC, and feds came in and said you cannot do that, and the sheriff's office was in jeopardy of losing their access to the federal database. Just as a word of caution or
Right.
maybe follow-up.
Right.
Because we don't want to lose that access for the sheriff's office, most definitely.
Correct.
So I know they had to change their procedure at that time, but the situation may have changed.
Yes.
That's a number of years ago.
Moving on to field trips.
Yes, we heard this evening about the exciting field trip to Yellowstone National Park for this summer. I think that's a fabulous opportunity for our students. If there was one national park that I would say that I would go back to in a heartbeat, it would be Yellowstone. It is a wonderful experience, and I think that the students will gain a lot of knowledge by going. We have the National FFA Convention that is out of state in Indianapolis next month. And we also have the Fall Leadership Conference that is taking place in Ripley next month at the beginning of the month. All of those forms and things are in line, and now that Ms. Tenney is going to start working on what she needs to get together for our students, not only here, but she's been to Lewis County and Randolph County to make the same presentation, so that there will be other students accompanying us on that. Takes us down to the next section, unless somebody has a question about field trips.
So the state approved those two?
Yes, we send all that to them.
Okay, we don't get a say in that.
No.
Item 9, financials.
Yes, you have a copy of all the approved checks for August of 2024. Sarah is working diligently on closing out last year. She is waiting for some guidance from some other county treasurers, because as we all know, she is still learning. She did not officially take over until December of last year, so she is putting all of those things together. But these are the checks that were approved by the state for release, so that we could continue to pay those invoices as they are presented. We are getting much better in getting signatures on invoices prior to asking for payment. That's also one of the areas in the audit last year that we've been working really hard on. So we are seeing much improvement in that area as well prior to checks actually being paid. Any questions on those?
Section 10, student matters, personnel, or legal matters. Mr.
Yes, Madam President, board members, as you can see in your attachment, things are, in some ways, things are beginning to slow down a little bit in personnel, although you would not think that if you were in the office. We are intensely auditing all of our files. At the same time, though, in the hiring process, as you can see, we did have a few resignations that did come about through working with the superintendent. She agreed to allow some of those things to happen as long as we could get people hired. The following page, as you see, we begin to have quite a few hirings, and at the last meeting that I spoke at, the question was asked about how many openings were we at, and I said we were very much like most other counties at that time, hovering around the 20 number. If you go through and count up basically the hires that we had in the professional setting, it came out really to 19 hires. One of those was internal. So we do have one or two more jobs that we're trying to fill, but if it wasn't hired professionally, we do have long-term sub situations, and we've gotten majority of our jobs filled. So just with a one or two, because of some movement, things are looking pretty good in getting those jobs filled, and we continue to post and look for certified personnel at every opportunity. The other thing I was going to say, again, thinking of lots of our board members, you know, obviously the Wilfong family we think of right now, but as you can see in the F letterhead at the bottom, several FMLA applications. We've got a lot of employees going through something right now, so we ask that you think of them. We're trying to work with them and help them in any way we can. Other than that, personnel matters are looking better, unless you have any questions.
Just as a clarification on the unfortunate situation, but that we learned of, I learned of this evening, but was the December 2025, is that a correct date, or should that be December 2024?
No, it was through December 2025.
On an intermittent basis? Or?
Yes,
Okay, so it was intermittent.
yes.
Okay, that answers that then.
And we did have two people walk in, and some are moving. They're moving here to Upshur County. They've been teachers in the past, and they signed up to substitute. So that's very good news, and we're still seeking those folks every day.
Bring them on.
Yep.
We are down to future meetings. Our next meeting will be October the 8th at 6 o'clock at Rock Cave Elementary School. That is a change for us in where we will be. And you can see the dates for November and December. As Mrs. Miller has said repeatedly, these are our future meetings, but another meeting could be added if need be at any time for those. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned at 7:07.
Oops.